The 2025 prophecy, Nostradamus saw three nations falling into darkness. What if a 16th century prophet foresaw the collapse of our modern world, not through war or invasion, but through division, disconnection, and decay from within? In a time where the future feels more uncertain than ever, an ancient voice rises from the past, mysterious, poetic, and disturbingly accurate. His name was Nostradamus, and for centuries, his cryptic verses have stirred wonder and fear. But hidden among his more well-known predictions lies a chilling warning few have ever seen until now. A quatrain whispered through forgotten manuscripts tells of three powerful nations, once symbols of strength and pride, falling into darkness, not because of enemies at their gates, but because of fire within their own walls. And now, in 2025, that warning feels less like legend and more like a mirror. Today, on the Journey of Wisdom, we unravel the eerie prophecy that some believe is unfolding before our eyes. What did Nostradamus really see? What do the symbols mean? And more importantly, what should we do about it? Let's begin. Number 1. Nostradamus and the prophecy. In the deep echoes of history and mystery, few names provoke as much awe and debate as Nostradamus, born Michel de Nostradamia, man whose shadow stretches across the centuries through cryptic verses that have stirred imaginations, kindled fear, and sparked endless speculation. A physician and seer of the 16th century, Nostradamus poured his haunting visions into a collection known as Les Prophéties, a book of over 900 quatrains, four-line poetic riddles that veer between metaphor and foresight. While many scoffed at these as obscure musings, others could not ignore how uncannily some predictions mirrored the great events of human history. Yet, what remains most striking is not what is widely known, but what has emerged quietly from the margins like a hidden page in time. One such obscure quatrain, never officially recorded in the first editions, was preserved in lesser-known European manuscripts and only came to public attention when it resurfaced at a Parisian auction in 1994. This cryptic verse spoke ominously of three pillars once proud, who by fire, flood, and fault shall crumble before the rise of the double sun. These words, though steeped in metaphor, have become a source of urgent inquiry. Modern scholars, intelligence analysts, and historians have begun to interpret the three pillars as symbols of powerful countries once seen as unshakable forces in global affairs, now showing signs of inner decay, conflict, and moral erosion. Fire, flood, and fault may not only point to literal disasters, but also to spiritual, political, and societal breakdowns. In our modern world, where global tensions, economic crises, and environmental collapse seem to converge, such imagery feels less like ancient poetry and more like a quiet warning. Number 2. Prophecy of three nations falling into darkness. 1. The United States, the land of the eagle. Let me take you on a reflective journey into a prophecy that has stirred both curiosity and caution. In the land of eagle's cry, twin flames rise and vanish in dusk. The house divided shall fall as kings whisper in foreign tongues. Now, think with me for a moment. What do these words truly mean to us today, in 2025? When Nostradamus wrote of the land of the eagle, many believe he pointed toward the United States, a nation often symbolized by the bold and majestic eagle. But the cry of the eagle, in this context, is not a call of strength, it's a signal of distress. The line, "Twin flames rise and vanish in dusk," is widely interpreted to reference the 9/11 attacks, two burning towers rising against the sky only to collapse into dust and shadow. But beyond the literal, what deeper flame was lost that day? Was it just buildings, or also a sense of unity, trust, and direction. As we reflect on "the house divided shall fall," the phrase cuts deep. Look around, what do you see? A country torn along ideological lines, red and blue, no longer just colors but battle flags. Families avoiding dinner conversations, neighbors suspicious of each other's views. The division is not merely political, it's spiritual, emotional, and cultural. When a house is this divided, how long can it stand strong? Nostradamus didn't say it would collapse in fire or ruin, but in silence and confusion, slowly breaking apart from within. Then comes the warning that kings whisper in foreign tongues, a chilling reminder that influence doesn't always come from bombs or armies, it can come from shadows, cyber attacks, manipulated narratives, foreign hands shaping public opinion. The rise of misinformation and the inability to trust what we hear, see, or even believe. How do we as individuals protect truth in a time when it feels so fragile? We can also find echoes of the prophecy in nature itself. The land quivers beneath us, with seismic warnings from the New Madrid fault and the Cascadia subduction zone regions experts say could bring devastating earthquakes. But isn't it interesting how even the earth seems to mirror our inner unrest? Fires rage, floods destroy, storms grow stronger. Some might say the outer world reflects the turmoil within. Could it be that the true fall of a nation doesn't come from invaders, but from disconnection, from forgetting the values that once held us together? So, I ask you, is the prophecy about doom or about awareness? Is it a warning meant to frighten, or a mirror held up for us to see more clearly? What happens when we ignore the cracks in our foundation, not just in our government, but in our hearts, in our communities, in our compassion? The message here isn't just about the fall of a nation, it's about the erosion of unity, truth, and shared purpose. That's where the real danger lies. But here's the hope. What has been divided can be mended. A house can be rebuilt. Trust can be restored. The lesson is this: if we want to avoid the fate hinted at in ancient lines, we must start with ourselves. Seek understanding, not just opinions. Nurture unity where there's division. Be cautious of whispers in foreign tongues, but also of silence in our own hearts. Be the one who listens deeply, who questions with humility, and who believes that healing, both personal and national, begins not with blame, but with awareness. So what role will you play? Will you be part of the echo, part of the voice that speaks truth with kindness? 2. Turkey, the Crescent draped in a black veil. Let's take a moment to unpack one of the most haunting verses from Nostradamus that speaks of a nation where ancient history and modern tension collide. The Crescent shifts draped in black veil. Blood in the streets of the oldest city. The east shall shake, and from within the lion devours its own. This line has been interpreted by many as a foretelling of deep turmoil in Turkey, a country represented symbolically by the crescent moon, which stands boldly on its national flag. The phrase, draped in black veil, evokes a sense of mourning, of darkness descending not necessarily from foreign enemies, but from within. And when we hear blood in the streets of the oldest city, our thoughts are drawn to Istanbul, a city layered in centuries of history, a bridge between continents and empires, now trembling under modern strain. But let's go beyond the poetic symbols and ask, what could Nostradamus be really pointing at? And more importantly, what does this mean for us as observers, as learners, and as people who care about peace in our world? Today, Turkey faces multiple pressures that seem to align with these lines. Politically, the country has been navigating a complicated landscape: internal crackdowns on dissent, an increasingly centralized government, and challenges to freedom of the press and democratic norms. It is here that the line, "the lion devours its own," begins to make sense. The lion, a symbol of power and national strength, turning inward, consuming what it was meant to protect. What happens to a nation when its strength begins to undermine its own people? Can a society thrive when its voices are silenced and diversity of thought is treated as a threat rather than a strength? These are not just questions about Turkey, but reflections we must all consider about our own countries and communities. As the Buddha once said, "Three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth." When a government or any institution attempts to hide or suppress truth, it eventually rises like the sun over the horizon, undeniable and clear. Economically, Turkey has faced instability in recent years, fluctuating currency, rising inflation, and strained relations with international allies. Social tension simmers as people try to navigate these changes, and the risk of greater unrest always lingers beneath the surface. But Nostradamus didn't stop at political warning. He spoke of the earth itself shaking. Scientists have long warned that the North Anatolian Fault, which runs dangerously close to Istanbul, is overdue for a massive earthquake. A natural disaster of such magnitude would not only test Turkey's infrastructure, but also the resilience of its people and the leadership's ability to respond compassionately and effectively. And here we must pause and ask, when the ground beneath us literally shakes, do we know what still holds us upright? Is it trust? Is it unity? Is it compassion? Or have those pillars already begun to crack? The most chilling part of this prophecy is not the war or the quakates, the internal unraveling. The danger that a country may break not from an outside invader, but from a slow corrosion of values, truth, and human connection. The Dalai Lama once shared, "A lack of transparency results in distrust and a deep sense of insecurity." And that's a truth we can all relate to, not just in Turkey, but anywhere people are kept in the dark. The lesson here isn't to fear prophecy, it's to learn from it. If the signs are of division, of nature warning us, of people crying out for dignity and fairness, then the question becomes, are we listening? And if we are listening, what will we do with what we hear? So I invite you to reflect not only on Turkey's path, but on what this story reveals about all of us. What happens when we silence those who disagree? What happens when we ignore the natural world's warning signs? What happens when power becomes more important than people? In this prophecy, the fall isn't just about buildings or systems, it's about the soul of a nation. And the message is clear. True strength comes not from suppression, but from understanding, not from fear, but from unity. Will we allow the lion to keep devouring its own, or will we help it remember its duty to protect? If you're still watching, you're not here by accident. Nostradamus's words weren't meant to be ignored. Comment, prepare now, if you believe knowledge is power. Stick around, we're just getting to the most revealing parts of the prophecy and what it could mean for your future. 3. China, the cracked mirror and dragon's breath. Let's turn our attention to a powerful and unsettling vision from Nostradamus that many believe speaks directly about China. The mirror cracks in the land of silk. Dragon's breath scorches its kin. The red tide rises, but finds no shore to call its own. These words may seem poetic at first glance, but when we look closer, they reflect profound truths about the pressures building within a country, often portrayed as strong and unshakable. The land of silk clearly points to China, known throughout history for its ancient silk trade and deep cultural legacy. But when the prophecy says, "The mirror cracks," it suggests something deeper than a surface reflection. It points to the hidden fractures within Chinese society and its systems. A mirror only cracks when there's strain, and when a nation's image of itself no longer matches its internal reality, that's when tension arises. So we must ask, what are the forces causing these cracks in the modern Chinese mirror? For one, there's the demographic time bomb. China's aging population is increasing rapidly while birth rates fall, creating a looming crisis that threatens to upend its economy and social systems. Elderly care becomes heavier, the workforce shrinks, and the burden on the younger generation intensifies. In this way, the cracks aren't only symbolic, they're lived realities felt in homes, families, and communities. Then we come to the dragon's breath, scorching its kin, a powerful image that speaks to the internal suppression that has shaped recent years. Through crackdowns on dissent in Hong Kong, strict digital censorship, and growing restrictions on personal freedom, this prophecy seems to echo a government tightening its grip, not to protect, but to control. When the dragon burns its own, it suggests a power that turns inward with intensity, sometimes destroying what it was meant to protect. Buddha once taught, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule." This principle reminds us that leadership by fear or force may bring order for a moment, but not peace, and certainly not longevity. Suppressing voices can silence noise, but it cannot quiet the truth inside people's hearts. In parallel, economic challenges grow. Empty ghost cities stand as monuments to overreach and miscalculated ambition. While some cities gleam on the outside, many are hollow within, reflecting a mismatch between appearance and substance. This dissonance mirrors the prophecy's Tonia rising power that seems to lose itself in the process. The final line, "The red tide rises but finds no shore to call its own," is perhaps the most striking. It hints at China's global push for influence through the Belt and Road Initiative, military presence in the South China Sea, and diplomatic assertiveness, but also the growing isolation it faces. Many nations are cautious or outright resistant, and tensions around Taiwan and Hong Kong create further strain. Expansion without welcome, ambition without acceptance, these are red flags in every sense. As the saying goes, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." A reminder from Lao Tzu that the greatest power lies not in expanding borders, but in mastering oneself. What does all this mean for us today? It's not just about watching a nation from afar, but asking, in our own lives, are we building strong foundations, or are we chasing images that don't reflect who we truly are? Are we silencing our own truth to maintain an illusion of strength? The prophecy offers a mirror not just for China, but for every society and every individual that forgets inner balance in pursuit of outward power. So, I leave you with this. What would it take for a Nashina, a Pasonto, mend a cracked mirror? And are we willing to do the inner work before the reflection shatters completely? Number 3. Shared themes across all three nations. Let's take a moment to reflect on a deeper message behind Nostradamus's prophecy of three nations falling into darkness in 2020 fever, message that isn't just about governments, wars, or disasters, but about the condition of the human spirit in our time. While each country, whether the United States, Turkey, or China, faces its own unique path and challenges, what ties them all together is a pattern of warning signs we can no longer afford to ignore. One of the most visible patterns is the growing frequency and severity of natural disasters, earthquakes, from ancient fault lines, floods and wildfires growing more intense, and ecosystems pushed to the edge. These aren't random acts of nature, they're signals, like the earth itself is reacting to the pressure of human imbalance. When a nation ignores the needs of the land it rests on, can it truly thrive? But the shaking of the ground isn't only physical, it's symbolic of what's happening inside these nations as well. Social division is tearing communities apart, with people no longer seeing one another as neighbors, but as threats based on ideology, ethnicity, or beliefs. Whether it's political polarization in America, generational frustration in China, or deep cultural divides in Turkey, the same question comes to the surface: Can any society stand strong when its people are no longer connected? Adding to this unrest is a growing sense of government overreach. In each of these nations, we've seen examples of power being used not to serve the people, but to silence them. Authoritarian tactics may create temporary order, but they often come at the cost of trust, dignity, and long-term stability. As the Buddha once said, "You will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by your anger." When a system operates out of fear or control, rather than wisdom and compassion, it begins to destroy itself from within. And yet, even beyond the political and environmental, there's a deeper loss occurring, a spiritual unraveling. These nations are not just facing material or social decline, but a fading sense of purpose. Power without principle, progress without meaning, and leadership without conscience are the clearest signs of a civilization forgetting why it exists in the first place. So I ask you, what happens to a people when they lose sight of the values that once gave their nation identity and soul? Is it possible to grow economically and technologically, yet shrink in heart and spirit? Perhaps the most important lesson in Nostradamus's prophecy is not in predicting collapse, but in pointing toward responsibilities. Because what affects one nation does not stay isolated anymore. We live in a world more connected than ever, and a fall in one corner can ripple into every part of the globe economically, politically, and spiritually. The question isn't just what will happen in 2025, but how are we preparing ourselves now? Are we building lives and communities that are strong, not just on the surface, but rooted in compassion, truth, and unity? Are we more focused on being right or being kind? Are we waiting for governments to change, or are we becoming the change where we live? The deeper message is this: nations rise and fall, but it is the character of the people that determines how far and how long. So, in a world that sometimes feels like it's spinning out of control, perhaps our greatest power is not in controlling others, but in understanding ourselves. And from that place of awareness, we begin to rebuild not just broken systems, but broken spirits. What kind of future are you helping create with the way you live, speak, and treat others today? Number 4. The Double Sunday and Fourth Nation. Let's take a moment to explore one of the most mysterious and thought-provoking elements in the 2025 prophecy, so-called Double Sunday, and the unnamed Fourth Nation, which Nostradamus only described through poetic symbols rather than direct reference. When he wrote of the rise of the double sun, many believe he was not speaking of two literal suns in the sky, but of a dramatic global shift, a turning point in human civilization where two sources of power, light, or influence emerge simultaneously, challenging the world's understanding of leadership, balance, and destiny. Some interpret this as the fall of an old world order and the rise of something radically new, where power is no longer centralized in the hands of a few nations, but distributed in unexpected places. Could this be a technological revolution rivaling political power, or perhaps a spiritual awakening challenging material dominance? Nostradamus then hinted at a fourth nation not named outright, but cloaked in metaphor that would play a pivotal role in bringing the current prophetic age to a close. He speaks of a mountain split in two, a powerful image that may represent a country deeply divided, yet standing strong enough to become a force for transformation. Then there's a lion with no roar, which could point to a former empire or strong nation that has lost its influence or voice, yet still holds a silent wisdom that could help lead the world forward. Finally, he gives us the image of a frozen crown melting into the sea, perhaps a symbol of a fallen monarchy, a leadership in decline, or an identity once fixed in tradition now dissolving into a new, uncertain future. So the question becomes, who or what is this fourth nation, And what qualities must it possess to guide humanity through this time of darkness and toward renewal? Could it be a nation overlooked today but preparing quietly, grounded in humility and resilience? Could it represent not just a country, but a collective shift in consciousness, a movement of people who choose peace over power, wisdom over wealth, and unity over division? As the Buddha once taught, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. In a world that's been chasing speed, dominance, and consumption, maybe this mysterious fourth force is not about military might or economic strength, but about a return to inner balancia, reminder of what truly matters. The melting crown may be a sign that traditional power structures are fading, but the sea it melts into could represent collective consciousness, the shared ocean of humanity ready to embrace something new. If that's the case, the real question isn't where the fourth nation is located, but whether we are part of it in spirit. Are we living in a way that brings light to others, or are we only adding to the darkness? Do we speak when truth needs to be heard, even if we feel like the lion without a roar? Are we willing to bridge the divide in our own lives, as the mountain split in two asks us to do? In this time of great change, maybe the fourth nation is being built not through borders or flags, but through choices. As one world order ends and a new light rises, what role will you play in shaping it? Will you be part of the fear or part of the wisdom? Will you follow the noise or walk toward the truth in silence? The prophecy doesn't just predict, it invites. And if you're listening now, perhaps it's inviting you. Thank you for watching today's video. As we explore these mysterious prophecies and the fate of nations, I want to take a moment to say how grateful I am to have you here. Whether you're drawn to history, spirituality, or simply curious about what lies ahead, your presence truly matters. If you feel inspired, share your thoughts or personal reflections in the comments. If you're new, just say, "I am a seeker." If you've been walking this path with us for a while, comment, "I am awakened." Your voice encourages us and strengthens this mindful community. Now, let's keep walking this journey of wisdom together. From prophecy to real life, what should we do? You've just heard a powerful prophecy rich with symbolism and warning about three great nations, signs of decline, and a world that feels like it's losing its way. But the real question isn't, will this happen? The real question is, if it's true, then what should I do? We may not have control over geopolitics or global disasters, but we do have control over ourselves, and that's where real change begins. Here are 5 practical things you can do right now, not just to avoid falling into the darkness, but to help bring more light into this age of uncertainty. Number 1. Stay grounded in an age of information chaos. In this age of overwhelming information, where news floods our phones, opinions masquerade as truth, and fear spreads faster than facts, it becomes more important than ever to stay grounded and calm. The wise path is not to believe everything we see or hear, but to pause and ask, is this true? Where did it come from? Does it help or harm? Just as a tree stands firm in a storm because its roots go deep, we too must root ourselves in clarity and mindful discernment. The Buddha taught, believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it. Not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. In modern life, this means we should avoid becoming echo chambers of unverified claims or half-truths. Every time we click share or forward, we either add to peace or stir the storm. So, let's choose wisely. Instead of letting fear shape our choices, let us lean into thoughtful inquiry. This is not just about protecting ourselves from falsehoods, but also about nourishing our minds with meaningful, verified knowledge. A mind that feeds only on fragments and flashy headlines grows restless and shallow, but one that reads deeply, seeks out diverse perspectives, and embraces complexity, becomes peaceful, aware, and compassionate. As Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living, and that examination begins with how we process the world around us. Take time each day to unplug from the noise and tune into books, genuine dialogue, and ancient wisdom that has stood the test of time. Remember, those who train their minds to reflect before reacting are less likely to be manipulated by fear or drawn into division. In our fast-moving world, wisdom is not just a luxury, it is a survival skill. So let us live with intention, speak with care, and listen with discernment, knowing that true strength lies not in knowing everything, but in understanding what truly matters. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, the most precious gift we can offer others is our presence. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they will bloom like flowers. When we ground ourselves in presence and truth, not only do we protect our own peace, but we also become a calming light for others lost in the storm. Number 2. Judge less, listen more. In a world where everyone seems to be talking, how often do we actually listen to just wait for our turn to speak, but really listen to understand another person's heart and mind? One of the most powerful things you can do, whether you're at home with your family, working with a team, or interacting in your community, is to let go of the need to always be right, and instead choose curiosity over judgment. When someone says something you disagree with, what would happen if you paused and said, "I don't agree, but I want to understand what you think"? This one sentence can disarm tension, open doors to real conversations, and remind others that they matter. Listening, as simple as it sounds, is one of the most healing actions we can take in a divided world. It's easy to judge. Judging gives us a feeling of control and superiority, but what do we lose when we close our ears and hearts? How many relationships are damaged, not because of disagreement, but because no one felt heard? What if we approached each conversation not as a debate to win, but as a chance to connect? As the saying goes, listening is the bridge that reconnects what's been torn apart. That bridge is built not by clever arguments or louder voices, but by patience, empathy, and the courage to listen even when it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly listened to someone you disagreed with? What did you learn, not just about them, but about yourself? Listening doesn't mean you have to change your values or pretend to agree. It simply means you care enough to create space for another human being's experience. The Buddha once said, "When words are both true and kind, they can change the world." But before we speak kindly, we must first learn to listen deeply. This practice takes strength, humility, and mindfulness, qualities that we all have the capacity to develop. So, next time a disagreement arises, whether over small daily matters or larger beliefs, slow down and ask yourself, do I want to win or do I want to understand? One path leads to walls, the other leads to wisdom. And the truth is, in today's fast-moving, opinion-heavy world, the rarest and most respected person is the one who listens first and speaks last. So, if you want to be someone who brings peace into their relationships, influence in their workplace, and harmony into the world around them, begin with listening, not passive, distracted listening, but heartful, focused, intentional listening. Because in the end, the message is simple: judge less, listen more, and you just might discover that understanding is the first step to healing. Number 3. Live simply but deeply. In today's fast-paced world, where everything pushes us to do more, buy more, and be more, have you ever stopped to ask yourself what is enough? We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us happiness is just one more purchase, promotion, or achievement away. But what if true peace doesn't come from having more, but from needing less? To live simply but deeply is not about denying yourself joy or success. It's about being awake enough to recognize when what you already have is sufficient. It's about stepping off the never-ending treadmill of comparison and pressure and instead grounding yourself in what truly matters: your breath, your relationships, your inner peace. The Buddha taught contentment is the greatest wealth. This doesn't mean we stop growing or improving, but that we stop measuring our worth by external things and start reconnecting with the richness of the present moment. Can you think of a time when you felt fully alive, not because of what you had, but because of who you were with, or the peace in your heart? The modern world sells us complexity, but the soul craves simplicity, a life that is full not of clutter, but of meaning. When we stop chasing the next thing, we free up time, energy, and space to notice the beauty in what's already here and to help others along the way. Ask yourself, if you had just what you needed and nothing more, could that be enough to live well, to love deeply, and to give freely? The answer often reveals a surprising truth: we don't need as much as we think. When you choose a life of mindful simplicity, you're not just helping yourself, you're creating room to care for others, to share your extra time, your extra money, your extra kindness. As Lao Tzu once said, "He who knows he has enough is rich." Living simply, then, is a quiet kind of courage, one that pushes back against the chaos and noise and says, "I choose presence over possessions. I choose depth over distraction." So, as you move through your day, notice where you're chasing instead of being. Could you slow down? Could you give something away? Could you say, "This is enough"? Because when we do, we begin to live not just more peacefully, but more meaningfully and more connected to the people and world around us. If this message touched your heart, let us know in the comments by simply writing, "Simple is enough." No need to overthink it, just those 3 words. Your voice matters. Number 4. Reconnect with nature and your inner self. In a world where we're always plugged in, always rushing, and always distracted by screens, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, when was the last time I truly felt connected to the earth beneath my feet, to the rhythm of my breath, or to the quiet voice inside me? In the middle of all the noise and pressure of modern life, many of us forget that we are part of nature, not separate from it. When you take a walk outside, turn off your phone, and just sit in silence for a few minutes, something powerful begins to shift. You start to notice the breeze, the warmth of the sun, the birdsong, the steady beat of your own heart. This simple act, just being present in nature, is not just refreshing, it's healing. It reminds us that we are not machines made to hustle without rest, but living beings made to breathe, feel, and grow. The Buddha taught, if we are not fully ourselves, truly in the present moment, we miss everything. And right now, with everything changing so quickly around us, reconnecting with both nature and our own inner world is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You don't need to travel far or find a perfect setting. Even a quiet moment in your backyard or a walk around the block, done mindfully, can reconnect you with the peace that's always been inside you. Ask yourself, do I really listen to my own needs? Do I take even a few minutes each day to check in with myself without judgment, without rushing to the next task? When you reconnect with nature, you begin to realize you don't have to control everything. The trees aren't in a hurry, the rivers aren't competing, and the birds aren't worried about status, they simply are. And when we live in harmony with that natural flow, we find our stress softening, our minds clearing, and our hearts opening. As the saying goes, a calm mind creates a calm home, and a calm home creates the foundation for a stronger society. So, if you want to bring peace into your relationships, into your family, into your world, start by bringing peace into your own mind and nature is one of the best teachers. Whether you're facing confusion, burnout, or just a feeling of disconnection, let the natural world remind you of your place in the bigger picture. Let it guide you back to stillness. Let it teach you how to breathe again. The lesson is simple but powerful. When you step outside and reconnect with nature, you are also stepping back into your true self, calm, centered, and alive. And that reconnection is not only a gift to yourself, but to everyone around you. Number 5. Teach your children compassion and integrity. In this time of rapid change, where technology evolves faster than we can keep up, and the world often feels uncertain or divided, one thing remains steady and vital: are values. As parents, mentors, or simply as adults living in this era, we carry the responsibility of passing something deeply meaningful to the next generation, not just knowledge or skills, but wisdom of the heart. Honesty, gratitude, kindness, and responsibility are not old-fashioned, they are timeless. They are the inner compass that children will need more than ever in a world filled with noise, pressure, and distractions. You may ask yourself, what legacy do I really want to leave behind? Is it wealth, degrees, or status? Or is it the way your child speaks gently to someone who is struggling, the way they take responsibility when no one is watching, or the way they choose compassion over cruelty even when it's difficult? Success without integrity is a hollow victory. As the Dalai Lama once said, "When educating the minds of our youth, we must not forget to educate their hearts." Teaching your children to be good human beings doesn't mean preaching at them, it means showing them consistently through your own behavior. If you want your child to be honest even when it's uncomfortable. If you want them to be kind, show them how to treat others with compassion in the small moments at the store, in traffic, with strangers. Children absorb far more from what we do than from what we say. In a time when the world often rewards speed and self-interest, slowing down to teach patience, humility, and service becomes a radical act of love. Ask yourself, how do I want my children to respond when the world tests them, with fear and selfishness, or with calm strength and ethical clarity? Because ultimately, the future of a nation doesn't lie in its policy as it lies in the hearts of children raised with love and conscience. This is the real inheritance. No economy, government, or digital tool can replace the value of a heart trained in compassion. And the good news is, it starts with small, consistent steps, dinner conversations, moments of forgiveness, shared service, and honest apologies. So, whether you're raising a child, mentoring someone younger, or influencing through your example, remember this: the seeds of compassion and integrity you plant today may one day grow into the kind of world we all hope to live in. As Confucius wisely said, "The strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home." Let's begin building that strength, not just with words, but with love, practice, and presence, starting right where we are. As we reflect on these powerful prophecies, remember this is not just about predicting what might come, but about choosing how we live now. The future is shaped by our awareness, our choices, and our courage to care for ourselves, for others, and for the world we all share. If today's journey through the words of Nostradamus gave you something to think about, something to feel, or something to act upon, then let that be your beginning, not your end. Here at the Journey of Wisdom, we believe that even in dark times, insight and compassion can be guiding lights. If you found value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming reflections, teachings, and stories. Until next time, stay mindful, stay compassionate, and remember, wisdom begins not in fear, but in understanding.